What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at two pens instead of just one. I do have full reviews on each pen if you're looking for super detailed stuff, but for this, it's going to be sort of a comparison, a versus. If you could only buy one, which one would I recommend? That kind of video. If you've seen my video on the Leonardo Momento Zero versus the Tibaldi Bononia, this is essentially going to be in the same vein. So today we're looking at the Platinum 3776, Platinum Century 3776 versus the Pilot Custom 74. Now, I'm going to stay right off the bat that the writing sample of both of these pens are going to look very different because this one has a fine nib, this one has a medium nib. Despite the fact that they're Japanese, they are a little bit different, but I have used a fine and a medium in both, so I will talk about that. But either way, even if I had a fine and a fine, they write completely different and they feel very different. So we will get to that, and I'm going to pick a Parker hair off of my sweater. So I've had the Platinum 3776 for a very, very long time, like years. It was actually the first gold nib pen that I ever purchased, and I still own it, which is saying something because I tend to sell a lot of my pens. And I've had this Pilot Custom 74 for a few years. I don't remember exactly how long. I know that I did have one that was actually a completely clear body that had a fine nib. I did sell that because I didn't care for the fine nib, but I purchased this one with a medium nib and have had it now for quite some time, and I really enjoy it. I have no plans on selling it anytime soon. Physically, they're both pretty darn similar. The Platinum is like just a teeny tiny little bit shorter, but it's essentially negligible. As far as the width of the pens go, Platinum is a teeny tiny bit bigger. As far as like girthier, the Pilot Custom 74 is slightly slimmer, but honestly, they're so darn close. You can post both pens, and when you do so, try and line them up here for you. You can see that the Pilot Custom 74 is about a millimeter longer or so. And then for the grips, they're almost identical. Like, they are different grips. Pilot's is slightly longer than Platinum. It's also slightly more narrow than Platinum, but again, they're pretty flippin' similar. For both pens, I do have my thumbs on the threads. They are pretty smooth threads. You don't feel it, but Platinum does have a farther back step up here. So if you do hold your pen super far back, you will feel it. But really for me, it ends up on the back fleshy part of my thumb, so I don't really feel it. Nibs themselves are both gold nibs. They're both 14 karat gold nibs. Pilot's is a number 5. This is Pilot number 5 size nib. This one is a more traditional number 6 size. They both obviously look quite different, and they do feel substantially different, which we will get into. Both have plastic feeds, and they're both proprietary, but they both fill from the back end of the feed. Now, if you use them unposted, like me, try and line them up again, then the Pilot is ever so slightly longer than the Platinum. As far as weight goes, they're, again, negligible between the two. I would say ever so slightly the Pilot has a bit more weight than the Platinum when it is unposted, and that's likely because of the converter that I'll show you in a moment. Ever so slightly. When you have them posted, I would say the platinum actually feels slightly heavier, but that weight is in the back. So keep that in mind. As far as the converters go, they're both cartridge converter pens. They are both proprietary, so you cannot swippity swap any of them, which used to kind of bother me, but now it's just sort of par for the course because a lot of pens have proprietary cartridges. But regardless, the Pilot Custom 74 comes with their version of the Con 70. There's different versions of the Con 70, but they all function the same. Basically, it's a push button. So you submerge the nib and the feed up until the little breather hole here into your bottle of ink. You push the button, it creates a vacuum. You release the button, sucks up the ink. You do that several times until you eventually get a full fill. There will be some bubbles, just is. Pros to the Con 70 is that you do get a bigger ink capacity than any other converter, platinum included. Downsides is that it is a bit of a pain to clean out unless you have an ink syringe. The platinums is very basic. Both of them just kind of friction fit into the body here. It's like any other cartridge converter. You just twist the top, acts like a piston. You can unscrew this mechanism to fully disassemble and clean it, but I do know that they are apparently changing that and they're becoming more difficult, but this is a really old converter, so it works no problem. So you get a better, bigger ink fill with the Pilot than you do the Platinum, but it's not a tremendous, it's not like you're going from a cartridge converter to, like, you know, piston or eyedroppering, for example. You cannot eyedropper either of these pens, so that does not matter. For these pens in particular, I have the blue version of both. There are many different designs that you can choose for both, but they all obviously have the same body. So for the Pilot, you have their traditional ball clip, which is pretty fine. Nothing too fancy. I don't really use clips very much. They just sort of act as roll stops for me anyways. But that's sort of the overall design of the pen, the parts of the pen. Now let's ink them up and write with them. All right, I'm testing out a new placement for my mic as well. I'm just moving the cable so it might be loud. So we'll see if this is better. Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you like the placement number 1 or placement number 2 better? Because I never know these things until I try them out. So we're going to experiment. All right, so I've inked up both pens. In the Pilot Custom 74, I have Montegrappa, Harry Potter, Ravenclaw Blue. Go Ravenclaws. And in the Platinum 3776, I decided not to put my usual Diatramentis Cola in here, even though that is what I use 99.9% of the time. And I went with Private Reserve Copper Burst. The end result looks very similar. I just don't get any scent with the ink. So I went with those. I did not put, obviously, the same ink in them because, like I mentioned before, it's vastly different the way that these write, and the ink does not in any way make a difference, and you'll see that in a moment. One thing that I forgot to mention in the first segment of this video is that obviously this one is slightly transparent, this one is not. Most of the Platinums are not transparent. You can get some, that are. They're special edition ones, but almost all of the pens, well, all of the pens that are sold in North America, but you can get someone in Asia that are completely a solid color, but almost all the ones that are sold in North America are like this, where they have some color, but they are translucent. But the main thing that I wanted to say that will bother some people is that it is a semi-transparent grip section, which means that you do see the ink underneath the grip section here, which when it's actually in use, you can't really. But chances are when you're cleaning the pen, you will never get 100% of it out. So some people really get bothered by that. They think that their pen is still dirty. But the fact of the matter is that every pen is like that. It's just that you can't see that in other pens. So it is something to keep in mind. But since I have this one in my hand, let's start with this one. And I'll see if I can get you a little closer. Whoa, that might be too close. All right. So we have the Pilot Custom 74. Why is this not super focusing? This is the medium nib, and it is Monte Grappa, Ravenclaw, blue. So as you can clearly tell, it is a very wet writer. Super, super wet. Admittedly, I have never used this ink before, so I don't know how wet the ink itself is, but I have put many, many, many inks in this, and it is always performs like this. What I love to put in this pen are the multi tonal inks. So like Sailor 123, 224, most of the Troublemaker inks, the ones that are very light, they're not saturated, but when you put down a lot of the ink, you really get the different tones. You get like pinks and blues and things like that. I really like to put that in this pen because it is so, so wet. And then on Tomoe River paper, which this is, it really gives its best foot forward. You can get some good line variation. It's not like, you know, a flex nib or anything, so you're not going to get anything crazy. What I love about this nib, which is something that you either love or hate, it's pretty polarizing, is that this nib does have what feels to me, and the best way I can describe it is like a shock absorber when you write. You know, it's just, it feels like it's a little bit mushy almost, but not in a way that makes you feel like you're going to spring your tines or anything. It just sort of bounces with your writing. It goes with you. It goes with the flow. I really, really, really like that. One thing that is pretty common with the number 5 size nib, more noticeable on the fine than the medium, is downstrokes, very wet. Upstrokes tend to be much drier. It's just the way that these nibs are. I've used multiple pilots and they're all like that. I've used multiple number 5 size, which is the most noticeable in my opinion, and they're all like that. I personally like it because it gives a shading property to inks that don't even typically shade, and because the downstroke is so wet, really the upstroke is probably a regular flow. It's just that the downstroke is super wet. So I like that, but it is something to keep in mind because a lot of people don't. So I absolutely adore the way that this writes. This pen, on the other hand, is almost the exact opposite of everything this nib has to offer. This is a much crisper line. So even the fine does have a crisper line than the medium, obviously, but the platinum fine is just like extra crispy. I don't know why I didn't finish the F there. So I don't know if you can hear it where the mic is. But this is a much toothier writing experience. It's not scratchy by any means, but it is definitely toothier. The point is significantly finer. Even when you have the Pilot fine nib, you don't get the same tooth level as what you get with this. It's still much smoother, much bouncier with that shock absorber effect. It's just more pronounced on the medium nib than it is on the fine nib. With this, you definitely get some feedback, no question. But again, it's not scratchy. But if you're used to pens like this, you may think it is scratchy. But the line is super, super crisp. Platinum does that better than I think any other pen for getting really, really crisp. All right, well, that was unfortunate. My camera ran out of space and it stopped recording and I did not notice, so I kept blabbering on. So basically all that was said when my camera cut off, when I made these extra scribbles that are not present anymore, is that because the writing styles are so different, both of these pens are going to serve a different purpose. If you write really fast, then you may want to go with something like this, because it's going to have less resistance across the page. But if you if you want to feel that contact between your nib and the page, you don't like the slippery feeling, then you're going to want to go with something like this. Of course, paper will play a huge impact on both of these nibs. Something like this is a toothier writing experience with a much crisper line. So if you have paper that has like really intense fibers, so paper that's not as smooth as like a Rhodia, Clairefontaine, Tomoe, you will feel it much more than if you're writing with something like this. So keep that in mind as well. What I was also saying was that the price point is fairly similar between the two. They're not spot on. I will have them both here. The reason why I didn't get into price too much is because you can find both of these pens on gray markets. That is up to you whether you want to support a gray market or an aftermarket company rather than buying directly from retailers. And every country will also have these pens wildly different prices. Because they both come from Japan, the import pricing can be astronomical. So for Canada, it's going to be much higher than even the US. Europe, probably even higher than Canada. But if you're in Asia, you can find these pens really cheaply. Both of these pens have been around forever. So you can definitely find them secondhand, bar none. But other than the writing style, they both perform perfectly. I've never had any hard starts, never had any skipping, never had any issues with drying out. They are both sealed very well. Platinum has their slip and seal technology, which supposedly when it's capped, you could leave this for like 3 to 5 years or something and it'll still write. Never tested that. I've only done a few months when I went traveling one time and left it behind, but that's supposedly a thing. Pilot does not have that, but I've never encountered any issues with either pen. I've had this one longer, but I've had this now for several years as well, and no issue there. So really, I think when you're coming down to the purchase point, you'll have to consider 2 main factors, and they're pretty large. So they are things that you're going to have to decide by. One is just the pure aesthetics of the pen. Which one just is more attractive to you, because they're different, and that is a huge factor. What the pen looks like. If you don't like the look of it, you're not going to use it, even if it writes amazing. Because if you think it's ugly, well, you're going to ignore it. And the other, of course, is the general feel that you want. Do you want a smooth, slippery shock absorber feel, or do you want a crisp, fine, slightly toothier, but you really feel what you're doing kind of writing experience? Like I said, even if you get the fine, you will have a crisper line, but you still have a more slippery, smooth shock absorber feel than you do with the Platinum. So if you've used both, let me know your comments down below so that others can decide. Personally, if I had to choose between one and only one, that's very difficult. I would probably choose the Platinum, and only because I do also have the Custom Heritage 912, and I also have the 823, whereas with Platinum, this is really the only Platinum pen that I want. So I have other options with the Pilot than I do the Platinum. So I'm taking kind of the easy way out. But if I don't factor in any other model of these pens, oh gosh, I would still probably choose the Platinum, only because, again, I can get this style of writing from other pens, but this is pretty unique. Platinum really owns the market, I think, with super, super crisp, detailed lines. While I don't think anyone has a pen that is quite the same as this either, as far as the shock absorber feel on the nib, I feel like other pens can get close. Not perfectly matched, but close. So in an ideal world, get both. But those are my thoughts. Those are my feelings. Like I said, check out the comment section down below for others. These are pretty popular pens, so you can definitely find tons of content around there. Again, I have done detailed reviews of both. Hit the like button if you liked this video. Hit the subscribe if you want to see more videos every Monday and Friday and the occasional on Tuesday. Check out my Patreon if you want to help support me and this channel. And then also tell me down in the comment section below what pens you want to see go head-to-head next. I appreciate you guys. If you're still watching this far in, you are the reason I make these videos. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to thank all of my VIP and above patrons. This was filmed May 2nd, so if you don't see your name and you've just started supporting me, don't worry. It will appear as soon as I can update it. So we have Mr. Daniel Roddy. We have Elizabeth, Glenn Kelly, Joan Worthman, Brian Hunter, Aaron C., Luna Wolf Games, Bobby A. Bailey, Bass, Wayley Chang, Brian Law, Lucas Bell, Aubrey Madcore, Marissa Calvo, Eric Lineman, Jessica Chow, Stephen Baldwin, Carol Lowry, Michael Simon, Sean Sturdy, Catherine Molina, Robert Myers, Bianca Andrews, Bill Pemberton, Karen Epstein, Gretchen Peters, Subiwan Kenobi, which is just the best name. She's actually presidential tier, Bianca Andrews, digitaltent.tech, and McCall Bennett Lawrence. Thank you all, regardless of the tier you choose. You will never know how much it actually means to me that you support me, my content, and what I do here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.